It's funny, isn't it? How you can share a bed with someone for months, years even, yet feel like a stranger in your own skin the moment they ask you to be invisible. And the worst part, I said yes. I let him hide me. The first time I realized Ethan would never claim me out loud was a Tuesday morning. The kind where New York felt like it was choking on its own ambition. He sat at the kitchen counter in his crisp blue shirt, scrolling through his phone, while I made coffee like some well-trained ghost. His lips had pressed against mine just minutes before in the privacy of our apartment. But when the call came from his father, Congressman Ward, the kind of man who thought appearances were everything, Ethan's eyes hardened. His hand slipped from mine, and he mouthed, "Not now. Not now. Not ever." I laughed when he suggested I consider alternatives. The irony wasn't lost on me. Alternatives meant marrying the daughter of his father's old friend. A neat little arrangement that would keep Ethan's future clean, untouched by scandal. And because I was the fool who thought loving him was enough, I said yes. But life has a way of mocking the lies we build for ourselves. That's how Noah walked in. The church basement smelled of dust and lemon polish. Rehearsal dinners were supposed to feel like celebrations, but mine felt like a crime scene, the corpse being my dignity. I adjusted my tie in the cracked mirror and wondered if anyone would notice if I bolted. That's when he appeared. Noah wasn't supposed to be there. He wasn't from the Ward circle of politics, money, and empty smiles. He was just Noah, a family friend of the bride-to-be, called in at the last minute to help with music arrangements. Guitar slung over his back, hair falling in casual waves, eyes that didn't just look at Methy saw me. "You look like you're about to be executed," he said, leaning against the doorframe with a crooked smile. I laughed, and God, felt like oxygen. "Maybe I am." "Then I hope they let you pick your last meal," he replied, and just like that, the noose around my chest loosened. Ethan was late that night. Of course. He breezed in like a storm of apologies, shaking hands, smiling the kind of smile that charmed reporters but cut me like glass. Noah, meanwhile, tuned his guitar in the corner, humming softly. His music filled the hollow spaces Ethan left behind. By the time the dinner ended, I knew two things with terrifying clarity. 1. Ethan would never choose me in the light. 2. Noah had already lit something inside me that I couldn't ignore. I didn't fall for Noah in a single night. No, it was slower than that. Crueler. Like water seeping into cracks you didn't know existed until the foundation started to tremble. He found me outside during a smoke break I didn't even need. I didn't smoke. I just needed to breathe. The air was crisp, the kind of autumn chill that made your lungs ache in a good way. "You don't look like the type," Noah said, nodding at the cigarette in my hand. "I'm not," I admitted, tossing it to the ground. "Unlit." "Thought so." He grinned. "So what are you really doing out here?" And because something in his voice made lying impossible, I told him the truth. About Ethan. About the marriage. About how love felt like a punishment instead of salvation. He didn't flinch. Didn't judge. Just looked at me, long and steady, before saying, "You deserve better than being somebody's shadow." It was the kind of sentence that dug under your ribs and stayed there. The wedding was 3 weeks away. Every day felt like walking toward a firing squad. Ethan and I barely spoke except in coded glances. Rush touches when no one was watching. He was drowning in his own ambition, and I was shackled to it. But he was everywhere. At rehearsals, at family dinners, even on late-night drives when I couldn't stand the silence of my apartment. He filled the spaces Ethan had abandoned. He made me laugh at things that weren't funny, Made me believe that maybe happiness wasn't a luxury for other people. One night, sitting in his old truck under a sky littered with stars, he asked, "Why are you doing this to yourself?" I didn't have an answer. Or maybe the answer was too ugly to say out loud, because I was too scared to let go. He reached across the console, his fingers brushing mine. It was the softest rebellion, a touch so gentle it felt like a promise. My heart stuttered, and for the first time in months, I let myself imagine a life where I wasn't invisible. But love, real love, doesn't arrive without a fight. And if Ethan was anything, he was a fighter. When he found out about Noah, it wasn't dramatico slam doors, no broken glass. It was quieter, sharper. He cornered me in the kitchen, voice low and dangerous. "You think he can give you what I can't?" He hissed. I stared at him, at the man I had loved so desperately, and realized the truth. "Yes," I whispered. Ethan's silence was worse than any scream. The days that followed blurred into chaos, family politics, whispers of scandal, threats from people who cared more about appearances than love. But through it all, Noah stayed. He didn't flinch when I pushed him away out of fear. He didn't leave when the world tried to make me choose between comfort and truth. He simply stood there, I steady, voice soft. "I'm not asking you to burn down your world. I'm just asking you to stop setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm." And maybe that's when I knew. Couldn't go back. What I didn't know then, standing on the edge of everything I thought I wanted, was that the choice I made would change all of us forever. If guilt had a sound, it would be the way my mother's voice cracked when she told me how proud she was of me. "Marrying into the Ward family is the best thing that's ever happened to us," she said, smoothing my suit jacket as if the fabric itself could erase my doubts. "You'll finally have security, stability, no more worrying about rent, no more chasing impossible dreams." Impossible dreams. That was what she called Ethan once. Back when I first brought him home. Back when she thought he was just a college friend. She wasn't wrong. But standing there in our cramped living room with its fading wallpaper, I realized something. Stability wasn't love. And the cost of her dream was my own freedom. Still, I smiled. I lied. I said, "I know, Mom. I'm lucky." And in that moment, I hated myself more than I hated Ethan. Noah had this way of finding me when the walls were closing in. It was like he had a sixth sense for my unraveling. A week before the wedding, he showed up at my apartment unannounced, holding a paper bag filled with greasy cheeseburgers and fries. "I figured you could use a last meal," he teased, plopping down on my couch without waiting for an invitation. I should have told him to leave. Every second with him made the line blurrier, the lies heavier. But instead, I sank down beside him, the smell of salt and ketchup filling the room. We ate in silence, the kind that didn't need filling. Halfway through his burger, Noah wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and said, "You know, I've played a lot of gigs in a lot of ugly places. But watching you walk into that church basement felt worse than any dive bar I've ever been in." I tried to laugh it off. "Guess I'm not cut out for high society." "That's not what I mean." His voice softened. "I mean you looked trapped, like someone had clipped your wings and shoved you in a cage." My throat tightened. Maybe cages are safer than freedom. Noah turned, eyes locking with mine. "Maybe, but they kill you just the same." The days leading up to the wedding were a blur of fittings, tastings, endless photo ops with people whose names I barely knew. Ethan was always there, but never really there. His hand on my back looked like possession, not affection. His smile was for the cameras. Not me. The only time we were alone was in his car after an engagement party. The city lights streaked across his face. And for a moment, I remembered why I loved him, the boy I met in college. All sharp wit and nervous energy. Who kissed me in the library stacks like it was the most dangerous secret in the world. But that boy was gone. Replaced by a man who cared more about headlines than hearts. I heard you've been spending time with Noah, Ethan said. Eyes on the road but jaw tight. I froze. He's just a friend. Don't insult me. His voice was cold. You think I don't notice the way you look at him? Like he's the air you've been waiting to breathe. I wanted to deny it. Wanted to lie. But the truth sat heavy on my tongue. Maybe that's because he sees me, I said quietly. The car swerved slightly. Ethan gripping the wheel tighter. Do you think he can give you this life? The influence? The safety? Do you think he'll protect you when the world comes tearing at your throat? I stared out the window, tears burning my eyes. At least he won't ask me to disappear. We didn't speak for the rest of the drive. 3 nights before the wedding, I found myself at Noah's door. I hadn't planned it. My feet just carried me there, like they knew where I belonged even when my head didn't. He opened the door in sweatpants and a faded t-shirt. His hair a mess. No pretenses. No masks. Just him. Hey, he said, surprise flashing across his face before melting into concern. You look like hell. I laughed bitterly. Thanks. That's exactly what I was going for. He stepped aside, letting me in. The apartment smelled like coffee and pine. Warm and real. Not like Ethan's sterile penthouse. All marble and glass. I sat on his couch, hands trembling. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Noah sat beside me, close but not too close. Then stop doing what everyone else tells you to do. I can't. I whispered. If I walk away, I'll ruin everything. My family depends on this. Ethan's career. Ethan's career isn't your responsibility. Noah cut in, sharper than I'd ever heard him. You've been setting yourself on fire just to keep his future warm. Don't you see that? The tears came then, hot and unstoppable. Noah didn't try to wipe them away. He just sat there, steady, letting me crumble without judgment. And when I finally collapsed against him, his arms came around me, solid and safe. His breath brushed my hair as he murmured, "You deserve to be loved out loud." Something inside me cracked open at those words. We kissed that night. It wasn't planned, wasn't calculated. It was raw, desperate, born from months of silence and longing. His lips tasted like honesty, and for the first time in years, I felt whole. But guilt followed fast, slamming into me as I pulled away. I can't. You can. Noah said gently, his forehead resting against mine. But only if you want to. I shook my head, heart tearing in two. It's not that simple. Love never is. He whispered. The next day, Ethan confronted me. He must have known. Or maybe he just saw it in my eyes, the shift. The quiet rebellion. We stood in his office, the skyline blazing behind him like fire. He looked every bit the future congressman. Tailored suit, polished shoes, perfect mask. But his hands were shaking. Tell me it's not true, he said, voice breaking. Tell me you didn't. I can't. I admitted. His face crumpled. For the first time in years, I saw the boy I once loved staring back at me, terrified and lost. I did this for us, he whispered. Everything I've built, every sacrifice was for us. No, Ethan, I said softly. It was for you, and I let it happen because I loved you. But I can't keep disappearing to make you comfortable. Silence stretched between us, sharp as glass. Then his expression hardened. If you walk away, you'll destroy me. I swallowed. Then maybe you should learn how to stand on your own. That night, I lay awake in my apartment, staring at the ceiling. The choice loomed over me like a storm. On one side, safety, approval, the life everyone else wanted for me. On the other, Noah, uncertainty, and the terrifying possibility of real happiness. For the first time, I realized that both paths would break something. The question was, which version of myself did I want to save? The rehearsal dinner was my breaking point. The room was filled with laughter and clinking glasses, the bride's family glowing with excitement. I wore the suit, played the part, smiled until my face hurt. Ethan sat beside me, his hand on my knee under the table like a brand. But then I caught Noah's eyes across the room. He was tuning his guitar, oblivious to the performance around him. His gaze met mine, steady and unflinching, and in that moment I knew I couldn't go through with it, because real love wasn't about hiding. It wasn't about sacrificing yourself on the altar of someone else's ambition. It was about being seen, fully, without apology. And Noah saw me. The night ended with applause and speeches, but inside, I was already planning my escape. I didn't know how, didn't know what it would cost. But one truth burned clear in my chest. I was done being invisible. The morning after the rehearsal dinner, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing nonstop. Dozens of messages, missed calls, the bride's family, my own. Ethan's campaign manager. It was as if the world had already collapsed. And I hadn't even moved yet. I didn't answer any of them. Couldn't. My body felt like it was made of lead, my chest hollow. The clock on my nightstand read 9:12 a.m. The wedding was in less than 24 hours. I rolled out of bed and splashed water on my face, staring at the stranger in the mirror. Dark circles, pale skin, lips bitten raw from holding back truths. I barely recognized myself. And then the thought hit me, if I go through with this, I'll never recognize myself again. I drove aimlessly for hours, through the winding streets of the city and out into the suburbs. At some point, my car carried me toward the small lake outside town, the one Noah had mentioned once as his thinking place. I didn't know if he'd be there. I didn't even know if I wanted him to be. But when I pulled up, there he was, sitting on the hood of his old truck, guitar in his lap, strumming something soft that disappeared into the wind. He looked up as I approached, surprise flashing across his face before he set the guitar aside. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said. I shoved my hands into my pockets, trying to steady myself. I didn't expect it either. He waited, patient as always, like he knew the words had to claw their way out of me. Finally, I said it. "I can't marry her." The admission hit the air like a gunshot, sharp and irreversible. Noah's expression softened, relief mixing with something I couldn't quite name. "Then don't." "It's not that easy," I whispered. "My family, Ethan, everyone's counting on me." Noah slid off the truck, closing the space between us. His voice was low, steady. "Do you want to spend the rest of your life being what everyone else wants? Or do you want to live as yourself?" My chest ached. "And if I choose myself, if I choose you, what happens then?" He didn't flinch. "Then we face it. Together." That night, I didn't go home. I stayed with Noah. Not because we crossed some invisible line into passion, but because I finally allowed myself to rest. For the first time in months, I slept without nightmares. His heartbeat under my ear was enough. When dawn broke, the world outside felt louder, harsher. But inside, lying tangled in sheets that smelled like coffee and cedar, I knew one thing: I couldn't keep lying. Of course, Ethan wasn't going to let me slip away quietly. He showed up at my apartment that afternoon, uninvited. His eyes were bloodshot, his tie undone, the mask of control cracked wide open. "You're not answering your phone," he said, voice raw. "Because I have nothing left to say," I replied. He stepped closer, desperation radiating off him. "You can't do this. Not now. Do you understand what's at stake? The press. My father. This isn't about your father." My voice cracked. "This is about me. About us. And there is no us anymore." Ethan froze, the words slicing through him. "You love me," he whispered, as if saying it could make it true again. "I did," I said. "But love isn't enough when you bury it in the dark." For a moment, he looked like he might break. Then his expression hardened, bitterness twisting his features. "You'll regret this. He'll never give you what I can." I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. "He already has. He sees me." Ethan's silence was heavier than any scream, and then he was gone, slamming the door behind him. The hours that followed felt unreal. My phone kept buzzing, people demanding answers, arrangements unraveling. My mother called, voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. "What have you done?" she hissed. "Do you realize the shame you've brought on us?" "I can't marry someone I don't love," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "You think love pays the bills. You think it protects us from the world." She snapped. "This marriage was your chance to fix everything." I closed my eyes, letting her words cut me, because they weren't entirely wrong. But they weren't right either. "I'm sorry, Mom, but I can't live a lie." The silence that followed was worse than the yelling. When she hung up without another word, I knew I'd lost her too. That evening, I found myself at Noah's again. He didn't ask questions, didn't demand explanations. He just opened the door, and suddenly I was safe. We sat on the couch, the television flickering quietly in the background. I leaned into him, exhausted, and whispered, "I don't know what comes next." He kissed the top of my head, his voice a promise. "We'll figure it out, one step at a time." And for the first time, that sounded enough. The wedding day came and went without me. I didn't show. No tuxedo, no vows, no carefully staged photos for the press. Just an empty chair at the altar, and the whispers of a scandal that would ripple through the Ward family like a storm. I should have felt guilty, and part of me did. But mostly, I felt free. Free in a way I hadn't since I first fell in love with Ethan. Free in a way I'd never known was possible. But freedom comes with a price. The press swarmed. Rumors spread like wildfire about the broken engagement, about Ethan's betrayal, about me. Some headlines painted me as a coward, others as a villain. And though no one mentioned Noah by name, I knew it was only a matter of time. He knew it too. That's why, one night, he sat me down in his kitchen, the air heavy with unspoken fears. "They're going to come after me eventually," he said. I swallowed hard. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to drag you into this." He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. "I'm not afraid of them. I'm only afraid of losing you. My chest tightened, the weight of his words settling deep. You won't, I whispered. But even as I said it, I knew the storm wasn't over. Ethan's retaliation came faster than I expected. 2 weeks after the canceled wedding, a news article broke painting me as unstable, reckless, unfaithful. Whispers of an affair. Photographs of me and Noah leaving his apartment. Grainy but damning. The story didn't name Ethan as the source. But I didn't need confirmation. I knew. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. You destroyed my life. He spat. I'm just returning the favor. You destroyed your own life. I said quietly. I just stopped helping you hide it. His eyes narrowed. You'll regret this. Maybe I would. But standing there, I realized something important. Regret was better than disappearing. Noah stood by me through it all. The whispers, the judgment, the loss of people I thought would always be in my corner. He held me when I cried, made me laugh when I thought I'd forgotten how. And slowly, I began to see that love wasn't about perfection, or protection, or appearances. It was about truth, about choosing someone, even when the world tried to tear you apart. One night, months later, we sat by that same lake, the stars scattered above us. Noah strummed his guitar softly, the melody floating over the water. Do you ever wish things had been different? I asked. He paused, looking at me with that steady gaze. Different how? Easier, I admitted. Without all the pain, the lies, the mess. He smiled faintly. Maybe, but then I wouldn't have found you. My throat tightened, emotion clawing its way up. You make it sound so simple. Love is simple, he said. It's people who make it complicated. I leaned in, kissed him under the stars, and for the first time, I believed him. The fallout didn't fade, it shifted. First, people whispered my name like it was poison, a scandal to dissect at dinner parties and political gatherings. Then the whispers grew into open judgment. A barista wouldn't look me in the eye. My landlord hinted at finding other arrangements. And strangers online called me every name imaginable. But the hardest part wasn't them. It was my family. My mother stopped answering my calls. When I showed up at her house, she stood in the doorway, arms folded tight across her chest, like she was holding herself together. You've ruined us, she said, voice cold. Do you know what people are saying? Do you know the calls I've had to take? Mom, you chose him. She spat, her eyes flicking with contempt I'd never seen before. Over us, over your future, over everything. I wanted to tell her that love wasn't betrayal, that choosing to live honestly wasn't some crime. But the words died in my throat, because in her eyes, I'd already been tried, convicted, and sentenced. She closed the door, and I let her. Noah found me sitting on his porch that night, shoulders hunched, staring at nothing. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. Instead, he pressed a mug of hot cocoa into my hands and sat beside me, his thigh brushing mine. The warmth of his body was the only thing keeping me anchored. I don't know how to fix any of this, I whispered. You don't have to fix it, he said simply. You just have to survive it. And you're not doing it alone. The words should have comforted me. And they did. Mostly. But deep inside, a voice whispered that survival wasn't enough. That maybe I needed to fight back, not for Ethan, not for my family, but for myself. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. A journalist reached out, one who wasn't interested in scandal. But in truth, she asked if I'd be willing to tell my story, to break the silence before others filled it for me. At first, I hesitated. My instinct was to hide, to let the storm pass. But then I thought of Ethan's smirk, my mother's cold eyes, the way the world seemed to think they had the right to define me. Maybe it was time to take that power back. Noah was nervous when I told him. "You don't owe them your truth," he said, pacing the kitchen. "They'll twist your words, use them against you." "Maybe," I admitted. "But if I stay quiet, they win. Ethan wins. And I'm done living in shadows." He stopped pacing, looking at me with something like pride and fear tangled together. "Then I'll be there. Whatever happens, I'll be right beside you." And he was. The article dropped 2 weeks later. My name splashed across the front page, paired with a headline that felt both terrifying and liberating. "I won't be invisible. One man's stand against silence in love." I told everything. About Ethan. About the arranged marriage. About Noah. About how love should never be something you hide. The response was a wildfire. Hate, of course. Ugly words and cruel messages. But also support. Messages from strangers. From kids who said they felt seen for the first time. From parents who admitted they hadn't understood until now. For every insult, there was a thank you. For every attempt to tear me down, there was someone who said my story gave them courage. And slowly, the noise shifted. I wasn't just a scandal anymore. I was a voice. But Ethan wasn't finished. He called me late one night, his voice slurred with alcohol. "You think you're a hero now," he sneered. "You think the world cares about your sob story." "I don't care what the world thinks," I said quietly. "I care about the truth." There was a pause. Then, softer, "You ruined me." "No, Ethan," I whispered. "You ruined yourself. I just stopped helping you hide it." The line went dead, and I knew that was the last time we'd ever speak. Life didn't magically get easier. The bills still piled up. Work was hard to find with my name in the news. My mother still wouldn't return my calls. But Noah was there. Always there. He played gigs in small bars to keep us afloat. His music raw and beautiful. I picked up odd jobs. Did what I could. We built something messy, fragile, but real. And in the quiet moments cooking dinner together, laughing at bad movies, falling asleep tangled in each other, I realized this was what I'd been searching for all along. Not perfection. Not approval. Just love. Honest and whole. One night, months later, we were walking through the city when a teenager stopped us. He looked barely 16, nervous and shaking, clutching his backpack like a shield. Are you the guy from the article?" he asked. I nodded cautiously. "Yeah, that's me." His eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." I thought I was broken. But then I read your story, and I don't feel so alone anymore. I didn't know what to say. My throat closed, emotion crashing through me. But Noah stepped forward, smiling gently. "You're not broken, kid. You're just human. Don't let anyone tell you different." The boy smiled through his tears, and then he was gone. But the weight of that moment stayed with me. Maybe all the pain had been worth it for this. For giving someone else the courage I'd almost lost. That night, as we lay in bed, I turned to Noah. "Do you ever regret it?" He blinked. "Regret what?" "Us. Everything we've been through. The mess. The backlash. The struggle." He laughed softly, brushing his fingers through my hair. "You're kidding." right? I'd go through it all again, twice over, if it meant ending up here with you. My chest tightened, tears pricking my eyes. I don't deserve you. He kissed me, slow and sure. You deserve the world, but I'll settle for being part of it. The seasons changed. The noise faded. Life became something quieter, steadier. Not perfect, never perfect, but ours. And as I stood by the lake one evening, watching the sun dip low, Noah's hand warm in mine, I realized something. I hadn't just survived. I'd found my freedom, my truth, my love. And for the first time in years, the future didn't scare me, because I wasn't walking into it alone. The final chapter didn't arrive with fanfare. Came quietly, like dawn creeping over the horizon, soft, inevitable, and full of promise. Months had passed since the article. The world moved on, as it always does. Scandals fade. Headlines vanish. New stories replace old ones. But for me, the echoes lingered, not as sharp as before, but still there. Some wounds don't disappear. They transform. I thought I'd lost everything: family, security, reputation. But life has a way of balancing the scales. Because in losing all that, I gained something truer. I gained Noah. One afternoon, as I was sketching ideas for a design commission in our tiny living room, Noah came bursting through the door, his guitar strapped to his back. His grin so wide I knew something big had happened. "You won't believe this," he said, dropping his case with a dramatic thud. "That label, the indie one I told you about, they want to sign me." My pencil slipped, leaving a streak across the page. "Wait, seriously?" He nodded, practically vibrating with joy. "They saw my set at the Lantern last week. Said they love my sound, that they want to work on a debut album." I shot up from the couch and threw my arms around him, laughing into his shoulder. "Noah, that's amazing." He hugged me back, spinning me in a messy circle until we both collapsed onto the couch, breathless and grinning. For so long, our lives had been survival, just scraping by. But here it was proof that all his late nights, all his pouring of himself into music, meant something. "You deserve this," I whispered. "So do you," he murmured, kissing my temple. "We both do." But with the good came a shadow. The label wanted him to tour. A small one, regional at first, but still weeks away from home. From me, I told him to go, that I'd be fine, that we were strong enough. And I meant it. But when the day came to drop him at the station, my chest ached like it was splitting open. "Call me every night," I said, trying to sound light. He cupped my face, eyes searching mine. "Every night. And I'll be counting the days until I'm back in this crappy little apartment with you." I laughed, but it came out watery. He kissed me once, twice, 3 times, and then the train took him away. Loneliness is a strange thing. I thought I'd known it before, during the arranged marriage, during the fallout, even sitting in my mother's cold silence. But this was different. This was missing someone who chose me. The days dragged. I filled them with work, with reading, with endless cups of coffee. His nightly calls became lifelines, each one a reminder that distance couldn't break us. But still I missed him. I missed the way he hummed while cooking, the warmth of his body beside mine, the safety of his presence. I started writing. First, just journal entries. Then, stories. Pieces of myself I hadn't shared with anyone. And slowly, I realized maybe I'd found my own voice, just like Noah had found his. Weeks later, when his tour ended. He came home not with exhaustion but with fire in his eyes. "You wrote all this while I was gone?" he asked, flipping through my notebook. Embarrassment flushed my cheeks. "It's nothing. Just words." "No," he said firmly. "It's you. And it's beautiful." For a moment, I saw myself the way he saw me, and it made me wonder if maybe I hadn't lost everything after all. Then came the letter. It arrived on a Sunday morning, tucked among bills and advertisements. My mother's handwriting on the envelope. My heart nearly stopped. I opened it with shaking hands. "I've been thinking about what you said, about what I said. I don't know if I'll ever understand, but you're my son, and I miss you. If you're willing, come home for dinner. No promises, no guarantees. Just come." Tears blurred the words. I read them again and again, hardly daring to believe. When I told Noah, he just squeezed my hand. "Whatever happens, you're not facing it alone." Dinner was awkward, stilted. My mother's eyes flicked to Noah often, guarded, uncertain, but she didn't shut the door in our faces. She set the table, served the meal, asked about our work. Small steps, fragile but real. At the end of the night, as Noah loaded the dishes, she pulled me aside. "You look happy," she said softly. "I am," I whispered. She nodded, eyes shining with something unspoken. And though it wasn't forgiveness, wasn't full acceptance, it was a beginning. Life went on. Noah's music grew. His name whispered in bigger circles. My words found their way into a blog, then a column. Slowly, steadily, we built something neither of us had dared to dream of when we first found each other in the ashes of my broken engagement. One night, sitting by the lake where everything had once felt hopeless, Noah pulled out his guitar. "I wrote something for you," he said. The song was raw, tender, full of longing and love. It told our story not with headlines or scandal, but with truth. My truth. His truth. Ours. When he finished, I had tears streaming down my face. "I don't need the world to know," I whispered. "As long as you do." He smiled, kissing me under the fading light. "The world will know anyway. But you," he touched my chest. "Right over my heart, you're the only one who matters." And that's how it ended. Not with a dramatic showdown. Not with a perfect resolution. But with something better. With love. With hope. With the quiet certainty that even when the world turns against you, even when you lose everything you thought you needed, you can still find the one thing that makes it all worth it. I'd agreed to an arranged marriage to hide who I was. I thought I'd lost myself in the process. But in truth, it led me here. To him. To Noah. And that was the truest beginning of all. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.